Vietnam. Oh, I mean, this is Group 1's country analysis presentation on Vietnam, presented by Patrick Rogers and Ezekiel Sims. Ready, go. Our outline on Vietnam is going to get started with Ezekiel leading us off talking about the country background and business practices. Show heading to myself, we'll talk about a little economic situation. I'll give you to Patrick. He will discuss some of the country's competitiveness as well as the healthcare. And then we'll get back to me. We'll run over some recommendations and wrap it up with a conclusion.
Vietnam's background. Their geographic location is southeastern Asia, bordering the Gulf of Thailand, the Gulf of Tonkin, and South China Sea, Laos, and Cambodia. The date of their independence is September 2nd, 1945. The capital city of Vietnam is Hanoi. Their current president is Nguyen Phu Trong. Political ideology is they're a communist state. The total population is 97,040,334. Urban versus rural population, 35.9% urban and 65.76% rural. Their life expectancy, total 73.9 years. For males, 71.1, and for females, 76.7. Vietnam's business practices. Their official language is Vietnamese. The literacy rate, male versus female, overall rate being 94.5%, 96.3% being men, and 92.8% being women. The country time zone is Indochina time, which is ICT. They are 12 plus hours ahead of Washington, D.C. The work days per week is 6. Working hours per day, they work 8 hours per day and 48 hours a week. Industries, agriculture 40.3%, industry 25.7%, and service is 34%. Their unemployment rate is 7.2%. The exchange rate, $1 is $23,195.18 in Vietnamese dong. One Vietnamese dong is 0.00004311124 US dollars.
Now for a little economic situation on Vietnam. So wrapping up the fourth quarter of 2018, Vietnam's growth accelerated mainly due to output in manufacturing strengthening, thus propelling the economy to one of the world's best performers and enabling Vietnam to capture economic growth for the year at 7.1%. Some insights that have been key to Vietnam's economic growth are domestic demand, increase in exports, and foreign investment and manufacturing. Taking advantage of the U.S.-China trade wars has boosted the country's GDP, capturing some of China's market shares as well. In addition to this, manufacturing in Vietnam rose 13% from the previous year, as well as there were a 9% increase in foreign and direct investment from 2017. In recent news, on April 20th of 2019, at Bien Hoa Air Base, the U.S. and Vietnam kicked off the dioxin remediation project, where treatment and isolation methods will be used to remediate approximately 500,000 cubic meters of contaminated soil and sediment. The project is expected to take approximately 10 years to complete. Vietnam is expected to see a 6.6% economic growth throughout 2019 and a 6.4% economic growth in 2020. The minimum wage in Vietnam increased in January of this year and ranges from the Vietnamese dong 2.92 million or US 125 per month 2. V&D 4.18 million or US 180 per month, depending on the region. Last reports on low-skilled wages were V&D at 5,372,100 or US 231.61 per month, while the high-skilled wages were V&D 10,825,600 or US $466.72 per month. The individual living wage of last report was V&D 4,752,300 or US $204.89, while the family living wage was V&D 7,763,600 or US $334.71. As of March of 2019, the unemployment rate was 2.17% and the inflation rate was 2.7%. The official exchange rate GDP of Vietnam in 2017 was 220.4 billion, while the real growth rate GDP was 6.8% and the per capita GDP was 6,900. Vietnam's GDP purchasing power parity was 648.7 billion and ranked the country at 35th globally. The country's GDP composition by sector consists of agriculture at 15.3%, industry at 33.3%, and services at 51.3%. Additionally, Vietnam's national resources consist of antimony, phosphates, coal, manganese, rare earth metals or elements, bauxite, chromate, offshore oil and gas deposits, timber, hydropower, and arable land. Vietnam's agricultural products consist of rice, coffee, rubber, tea, pepper, soybeans, cashews, sugarcane, peanuts, bananas, pork, poultry, and seafood, while the country's industrial products consist of food processing, garments, shoes, machine building, mining, coal, steel, cement, chemical fertilizer, glass, tires, oil, and mobile phones. Vietnam also saw a 8% growth in industrial production in 2017. Additionally, in 2017, Vietnam imported 202.6 billion in commodities such as machinery and equipment, petroleum products, steel products, raw materials for the clothing and shoe industries, electronics, plastics, and automobiles, while exports included 214.1 billion and included commodities such as clothes, shoes, electronics, seafood, crude oil, rice, coffee, wooden products, and machinery. Vietnam's major import partners include China at 25.8%, South Korea at 20.5%, Japan at 7.8%, and Thailand at 4.9%, while the major export partners include the U.S. at 20.1%, China at 14.5%, Japan at 8%, and South Korea at 6.8%. Now I'll hand you off to Patrick. We're going to talk about the country's competitiveness.
Thank you, Raven. This is Patrick Rogers, and I'll be discussing competitiveness in healthcare. Vietnam's property rights ranks at 49.8, which is ranked 30th among 43 countries in the Asia-Pacific region, and is overall well below both regional and world averages. Government integrity rates at 34%, judicial effectiveness at 40.3. Vietnam expanded rapidly in 2018 due to increased global supply chains and the U.S.-China trade disputes. For continued growth, Vietnam needs to overhaul its state-owned institutions, increase business sector transparency, and increase regulatory efficiency while building on its weak judicial system. The education system in Vietnam consists of primary, intermediate, secondary, and vocational and tertiary school. Vietnam's literacy rank is ranked 90%, and children start kindergarten at 18 months. There's 12 years of formal education, which begins at age 6 when they enter compulsory primary school, where they will remain for 5 years. Middle education consists of 4 years of traditional subjects, of language, mathematics, and science in preparation for secondary school. Following middle education is secondary education, which includes literature, reading, mathematics, calculus, geometry, physics, chemistry, biology, history, civics, and geography. Prestigious schools add advanced courses in natural and social sciences. Vocational training meets labor requirements with 2 programs. There's a 1 to 3 year vocational training and a 2 to 3 year vocational and technical education. University begins with undergraduate courses to complete a bachelor's degree. Following this, there are graduate level courses which lead to various types of diplomas. Vietnam's infrastructure consists of railways, pipelines, roadways, airports, maritime transport, and a communications network. Vietnam has a rail network consisting of 2,600 kilometers, or 1,615 miles. Vietnam has a total of 1,320 or 820 miles of total pipeline and has 195,468 kilometers of roadways, which is equal to 121,458 miles. This ranks Vietnam 66 in the world in total roadway distance. Vietnam has 45 total airports, 38 of which have paved runways, and this ranks 96 worldwide. Vietnam has one of the fastest growing aviation markets in the world, growing by 17.4% in the last decade, which was driven by a rise in domestic and foreign travelers, as well as the emergence of low-cost carriers. Vietnam has 47,130 kilometers of waterways, which ranks 4th globally. Vietnam has 1,863 total merchant marine vessels, and Saigon is the largest container port, and it handles 5,986,747 20-foot equivalent unit containers annually. Vietnam has over 120 million cell phone subscribers, with 125 per 100 inhabitants. Singapore ranks 12th internationally in cell phone subscribers. The country has 49.741 million internet users, accounting for 52.7% of the population. This ranks 16th in the world. The government controls broadcast media through oversight from the Ministry of Information. The Vietnamese government is currently working to develop a universal healthcare plan which will cover all residents with basic medical care. Currently, Vietnamese citizens have to pay for medical treatment at private and public hospitals. Public healthcare facilities in Vietnam are below the standards of what would be found in Western countries. These hospitals are generally understaffed and underfunded. Private hospitals have an excellent standard of care. Private hospitals located in Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City are staffed by doctors from the USA, Korea, Japan, and France, as well as Vietnamese doctors who have trained overseas. Vietnam currently faces several challenges in regards to the healthcare system. The majority of the hospitals are outdated and overcrowded. Hospitals lack the proper equipment for surgical and intensive care units. The current healthcare budget, while increasing, does not meet the demands of the aging public institutions, and there is a shortage of qualified medical personnel to fulfill positions within the healthcare sector. Vietnam spends approximately 7.1% of its GDP on healthcare and has 2.6 hospital beds per 1,000 people and 0.82 physicians per 1,000 people. Vietnam has a very high risk of major infectious disease. Bacterial diarrhea, hepatitis A, typhoid, dengue fever, malaria, and Japanese encephalitis pose the most significant risks. HIV poses little risk in Vietnam, with 0.3% of the population having the virus, and there has been 8,600 deaths caused by this disease. The major causes of medically related deaths in the country are cardiovascular disease, neoplasms, diabetes, and chronic respiratory diseases. This concludes healthcare. I will be followed by Raven for recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Now on for some recommendations. So, while Vietnam is still remains a communist party state, and in many ways is on the lower end of the spectrum when compared to many countries, the country itself has improved drastically over the past couple decades. Additionally, the country has made many recent improvements or laws to keep the country moving forward. Some of these newly established laws took effect on January 1st, 2019, while some become effective in July of 2019. A few of these new laws include cybersecurity, tertiary education improvements, civil aviation violation penalties, fines and sanctions, food safety certification improvements, agricultural, forestry and fishery laws, competition laws, anti-corruption laws, and environmental protection tax laws. However, with all of these new changes, we were able to still identify some areas where improvements are required. So, business. Vietnam needs to improve its citizens' literacy rate. The country should strive to ensure a 100% literacy rate. In addition, as Vietnamese is the primary language and English is an emerging second language, they should strive to implement English into the school curriculum. This will ensure within a decade that the younger generation will be bilingual citizens, as this will improve the country in terms of information technology platforms for, say, if in the emerging worldwide call centers, if the country were to have an influx of this type of business investments or ventures into the country. Additionally, continue to work towards improving the value of the VND currency to better the exchange rate and increase the GDP. So, economic situations or economic recommendations. While Vietnam has recently benefited from the U.S.-China trade ordeal, this will end sometime. In the meantime, Vietnam should look to build or establish more trade agreements with other or additional countries. We recommend that they look towards South America and Sub-Saharan Africa with the electronic exports, as well as South America and Sub-Saharan Africa with petroleum products and raw material imports, as well as exports. Moving on to some competitiveness recommendations. We got Vietnam must improve their overall economic freedom status, as well as within the areas of property rights, government integrity, judicial effectiveness, business freedom, and investment freedom. As well, they need to eradicate corruption, minimize the red tape, and lessen restrictions for business-related investing and investments and ventures into the country. Vietnam is currently on the right track towards improving their higher education, but they must ensure they follow through with ensuring better academia, professors, and reduce the red tape and corruption to afford everyone the opportunity to a higher education if they so choose that route. Additionally, the country's infrastructure should be improved, as well as including roads, the water systems, electrical grid, telephone hardline lines, and especially in the rural areas. Furthermore, if Vietnam expects to continue to advance, they should open up and lessen the government control and broadcast media, as this can also aid in economic growth. Moving on to healthcare. Vietnam should continue with developing their universal healthcare plan. In addition, there needs to be improvements to the existing and development of new private and public healthcare facilities, especially in the rural areas where care is limited or does not exist. The need for more providers, doctors, and staff already exists, but with the new facilities, this will allow for more positions in these facilities as well as reduce the existing overcrowded facilities. The government must lessen the red tape and restrictions on allowing healthcare equipment and supplies to be imported into the country, as this will aid and improve the healthcare facilities and providing better care for its country's citizens. Better infrastructure improvements, healthcare plans, facilities, equipment, and supplies, along with education and prevention methods, can aid in reducing and eradicating the food and waterborne diseases, as well as provide prevention and treatment for the major health issues within the country. In conclusion, today we discussed Vietnam's background, a little bit about business practices. We touched on the economic situation, on some countries' competitiveness, the healthcare situation, and wrapped it up with some recommendations. Our next couple of slides cover our references, and I hope you've enjoyed our briefing, as this concludes our country analysis presentation on Vietnam.